the homeless man I just caught digging through my backpack for money while I was in the bathroom, let me know if you found anything in there, because I'm broke too. Like, you shouldn't have ran off. You should have told me. We could have looked together.
Nobody talks about the difference between dress codes for girls versus guys at school. Because you would have thought everyone in my class was super down bad with how much the students got dress coded. Like, the girls would get so angry because anything they tried to wear got them sent straight to the principal's office. There was one time where a girl wore a long sleeve shirt that completely covered her whole body, but it was a little baggy around the neck. So when she adjusted it, you could see her shoulder. And the moment the teacher saw that shoulder peeking out, he sent her straight to the office and she came back with a XXL gym shirt on. But what even is the thought process there? Are there really people at school gooning over a girl's shoulder? I mean, I thought toe fetishes were weird, but y'all are taking it to the next level. Meanwhile, dress codes for guys at my school was basically non-existent. I remember during Halloween, one kid literally did not wear a shirt to school, and the teacher didn't care. Honestly, my theory is that the dress code is for the teachers, not the students. Did anyone else ever have a classmate who would only show up to school like once a month? And whenever they showed up, it felt like a special occasion because they were normally never there. I have no idea how these types of people pass their classes though, because there was one kid I sat next to who literally did not show up for 25 days straight. So the day he came back, I was like, bro, where were you? Did you go hike Mount Everest or something? And he says, nah, I just went to see the 7 wonders of the world with my family. Huh? Why'd you just say that like it's normal? Like, that's the tone I use when I have to tell someone I clogged the toilet. But I did not like sitting next to him because when he finally got back, we had a group project to do. But 3 days later, he was gone again and he didn't return for 2 weeks. So I had to do the whole project on my own. He just got done seeing the 7 wonders of the world. Where was he going this time? Mars? You know, actually, don't even answer that, because he probably was. One thing you should never do during a school fire drill is use the bathroom. Because one time, I left class because I had to go number 2. Yes, I went number 2 in the school bathroom, okay? I had no choice. But anyways, the fire alarm goes off as I'm there. And if you've ever been in the bathroom when that alarm sounds, you know that it is loud in there. So I'm freaking out because the teacher never told us a fire drill was happening, so I didn't know if it was real. So I'm there trying to finish as quickly as possible just in case there's actually a fire and I need to get out. So I start wiping like there's no tomorrow. But the only problem is, every school uses toilet paper thinner than a celebrity on Ozempic. So I'm wiping for like 10 minutes using the whole roll until finally it was good enough. So I quickly flush the toilet and run outside to see my whole classroom lined up. So I join them, but my teacher sees me and goes, Tyler, where were you? I just took attendance and you weren't there. Sorry, Mrs. Slater. I was busy fighting for my life. Maybe you should get some toilet paper. That doesn't make me feel like Casper the Ghost is wiping me next time. A girl came up to me today and asked for my number for the first time in my life. And I know what you're gonna say. Was she attractive? Well, she was like 65 years old. And I'm pretty sure she was homeless because she didn't have shoes and she was barking at people. But a win is a win, right? A win is a win. Nobody talks about how scary it was when the principal came to your classroom during school. Because I remember one time during class, all the students were talking. But the moment that door opened and we saw that it was the principal, the whole class immediately went silent. You would have thought she was a military leader with how scared she made everyone without even saying anything. She walked in and I was like, should I salute her or something? I don't know. But what was so funny about when the principal came to our class was our teacher would turn from the meanest person ever to the kindest. All of a sudden, someone would answer a question and the teacher would be like, good job, Anthony, you're so smart. Even though just 2 days ago, she told Anthony he's gonna be working at Walmart when he graduates. But what was really scary was when the principal would sit down next to you. Because she sat down next to me a couple times and she would be like, what are you working on? And my hand would be shaking and I'd be like, I don't know, I was watching LeBron highlights. Then 5 minutes later, she would just vanish. I don't think my heart rate has been that high since. Rich people spend money on the dumbest things. Because I know someone who got hired by this really rich guy to literally just follow him around all day and take notes on what he says. Because he wants to write a book with all of his tips on how to become wealthy. So my friend starts doing this job, but after a couple of days, he was already bored of the job and he was like, there's gotta be a more efficient way to do this. And that was when he realized he could just use this AI note taker instead of having to listen to what he says all day. All he had to do was press record, and when the guy would talk, it would listen to everything he said. And once he stopped recording, it turned everything he said into notes for him. So my friend literally got paid $300 a day just to follow this guy around and record what he says. The most funny part is, the rich guy could have just used this app himself to record what he said. It's called TurboLearn, by the way, if you want to use it. But he didn't even need to hire anyone. My friend definitely ain't complaining. Why do middle school teachers make high school sound so scary? Because when I was in middle school, one of my classmates unfortunately passed away from a sickness. And you may be like, Tyler, what does that have to do with your teacher making high school sound scary? Well, after this happened, there was a day in class where everyone was misbehaving. So the teacher screamed, which made everyone go quiet. Then she said, you guys think you can act like this in high school? You can't. If you try acting like this over there, you're gonna end up like Michael. Michael was the kid who passed away, by the way. But what did she even mean by that? Was it a threat? Because it kind of sounded like a threat. So anyways, after she said this, I was absolutely terrified for high school, thinking it was gonna be like a max security prison in there. But in reality, the teachers did not care. Like, high school was so chill that I used to play Call of Duty with one of my teachers. I'm pretty sure that teacher was just trying to threaten us. Never answer the phone they put in hotel rooms. Because I was staying at a hotel last week, and it was really old, so I was already a little spooked. But around 1 a.m., while I'm sleeping, I get a call on the hotel phone. And I'm thinking to myself, who is calling in the middle of the night on the hotel phone? Because you can only call those if you're in the hotel, so I knew it was someone else staying there. So I pick it up, but all I hear is breathing. So I say, hello, is anyone there? but no response, just breathing. So I'm spooked, and I hang up the phone, then go back to bed, trying not to think about it anymore. Until about 5 minutes later, I get a call again, so I pick it up and say, is someone pranking me or something? And finally, I hear a voice. So I say hello again, but they don't respond, which makes me hang up. But then a couple minutes later, someone knocks on my door. So at this point, I'm shaking. And I nervously look through the peephole, and guess who it is? An employee. Cause right when I checked into the hotel 4 hours ago, I asked them if they could bring me extra towels, but apparently they were busy until 1 a.m. So they were finally bringing them to me, but their phone didn't work, I guess, when they were calling. So that's why they were just breathing. I'm glad that's all it was. But why are you bringing my towels in the middle of the night? Someone asks you to guess their ethnicity, don't do it. Because I just saw this pretty girl at the airport, so I started talking to her, and eventually she asked what ethnicity I was, so I told her, but then I asked what hers was, and she wanted me to guess, and she kind of looked European, so I was like, are you Italian? She says no, so then I ask if she's Spanish. She says no again. So I guessed a couple more incorrect countries until it got to the point where it started to become awkward. So finally, I just asked her to tell me, and she said that she was German. But the only thing I knew about Germany was World War II, so I had the worst possible reaction to this information. Because I said to her, oh, Germany, nice. You guys had that one leader back in World War II, huh? And she just had that look on her face that was like, what did you just say? And I don't blame her because I was also thinking, what the heck did I just say? So right after that, she told me she had to get to her gate, which I knew was a lie because she said she was flying to Houston and the only plane going there wasn't leaving for another 2 hours. I don't blame her though. I would have left that conversation as soon as possible too. I need to learn more about other countries, bro. We really need to teach our parents how to use emojis correctly because my mom was just texting me about the fires that are happening in California and I was saying how it's super sad because a lot of people lost their homes and some people even passed away. But in response to saying this, my mom sends me a message that says, yeah, apparently over 20 people have already passed away from the fire. But that wasn't the end of the message. You know what she sent right after that? 3 emojis, and it was the fire emoji, the skull emoji, and the freaky ghost emoji that sticks its tongue out. The emojis literally made it sound like she was telling a joke, and I was like, Mom, that is not the right context to use those. But then I sent the skull emoji after saying that, so she was like, why are you allowed to use the skull emoji in that text, but I can't use it in mine? And it made me realize, I was like, dang, she's right, because her situation was actually appropriate for the skull emoji while mine wasn't. But because we've changed the meaning of the emoji, it just doesn't fit there. Please teach your parents what the emojis mean. For any girl that ever wants to know if a guy likes you, it's super easy to tell. Because my friend started liking this girl recently, but he didn't even tell me. I just figured it out on my own because of what he was doing. Because I was scrolling through social media and I saw that he posted a story, which was weird in itself because he never posts at all. But I click on it and it's a photo of a sunset with a Lana Del Rey song in the background. By the way, this guy's top artists last year were NBA Youngboy and Chief Keef. There's a 95% chance his most recent Google search was something along the lines of, is Lana Del Rey a person or a place? Do you really think someone that blasts NBA Youngboy is taking sunset pictures? Maybe. So when he posted this, I slid up on the story and said, what's her name? Then he replied saying, huh? So I asked what the name of the girl he likes was, and he goes, damn, was it that obvious? Well, considering the fact that you used to think Dua Lipa was the name of a yoga stretch, yeah, it was pretty obvious. I forget a haircut from a deaf person. Because my barber got deported recently, which means I had to find a new one. So I tried out this place I've never been to before today, and right when I walk in, all of the barbers are busy except one. So he waves in my direction, signaling for me to come over, so I do. But after I sit down, he doesn't ask what type of haircut I want or say anything at all. So I just take the initiative and start telling him the style I'm looking for. But as I'm doing that, another barber hears me and goes, oh, he can't hear you, he's deaf. First of all, he had an AirPod in. Why was he wearing that? But second of all, how am I gonna tell him the haircut I want? So the other barber says to show him a picture, so I do. But this is where I messed up, because in the picture I showed him, it was just how I wanted the sides to look, not the top. But obviously he couldn't hear me, so he thought I wanted the exact haircut from the pic. And what did that picture look like? This! I look like an egg! The whole process was a train wreck too. There was a point where he was using the razor on me, but it wasn't even on, and he couldn't notice because he didn't hear it. So honestly, this was probably all my fault. But if you have a barber like this, make sure you're specific. My barber got deported a couple weeks ago, so I'm trying a new one for the first time, and I'm kinda nervous. I hope he does a good job. Does anyone else have a friend you'll be on FaceTime with for no reason at all? Like, you don't even gotta be talking or paying attention to each other, and you're always doing the most random things while on it. Like, I was on FaceTime with my friend once while I was making food, and my mom came in, but she didn't even notice him, because neither of us were talking. But then he coughed, which made my mom flinch and go, did you hear that? And I said, hear what? Then she goes, I'm pretty sure I just heard someone cough. So I was like, oh yeah, that's James. And I showed her the phone, but then she was like, since when were you guys talking to each other? And I was like, about the past 2 hours. Then she asked why no one was speaking if we were on the phone this whole time. And I was like, I don't know. We just kind of like to chill in each other's presence, to be honest. But what makes this hilarious is James didn't even hear any of this conversation because he had me muted. Why was I muted, you ask? He was at the dentist. We were FaceTiming while he was getting a cavity removed. So when I say we FaceTime for no reason at all, I mean it. This is your warning to never correct your teacher. Because I had a teacher who was pregnant. I know, shocker, teachers are always pregnant. But anyways, because of this, she was super emotional sometimes. And there was one day where you could tell she was really frustrated. So she's teaching our math class and she tries adding two numbers together, but she gets the answer wrong. So most of us students are looking at each other like, should we tell her she made a mistake? But then we all kind of silently agreed not to because we could tell she was in a bad mood. But apparently one of the students did not get the memo because he raises his hand. So the teacher calls on him and he goes, actually the answer is supposed to be 573, not 473. But you could tell this was the teacher's final straw because once he said this, the teacher put her marker down and goes, Albert, do you want to teach the class? And he responds by saying, I was just trying to help. But then she was like, let me do my job. If I made a mistake, I'll figure it out. So we all just looked at Albert like, why would you say that? Like you knew that was gonna happen. She was so angry, I thought she was gonna pop the baby out right there. If you see me in public, please don't take a video of me without me knowing, because I was eating at Chili's the other night with my family, and I'm having a good time until I get the feeling that someone is looking at me. So I glance over to my right and see this kid eyeballing me. But he turned away super quickly, so I could tell he knew who I was. But instead of just coming up to me and saying hi, he took a video of me. And I didn't even notice he did this until the next day. I was getting tagged a bunch in this random post. So I click on it, and it's a video of me eating at Chili's that the kid took. And usually, I wouldn't even care. Like, y'all can do whatever you want when you see me in public. But the one reason I really didn't like this specific scenario is because in the video he took, I was mowing down some chips and salsa with the worst posture ever. Like I was eating faster than a British person after discovering seasoning. So if you're gonna record me, at least make me look good, man. Staying home sick from school is the worst because you cannot act happy at all. Like if you let out even the tiniest smile, your mom will sprint in there asking why you're smiling if you're sick. This isn't even exaggerating either because whenever I would tell my parents I didn't want to go to school, my mom would be like, okay, but you're not allowed to have your phone or watch TV if you're sick. What does that got to do with it? You think a detox from the internet is gonna cure my sickness? Well, it might, to be honest, but that's not the point. Like, my mom would literally tell me that I don't need to watch TV and I should just go back to sleep if I'm sick. But what am I gonna do? Sleep for 20 hours? So whenever I stayed home from school for being sick, my day literally just consisted of staring at the wall for 10 hours. The worst part was that I always smile in situations where I'm not supposed to. So when my mom would ask if I was actually sick, I would be like, yeah, and she wouldn't believe me. I promise I'm not lying. I just can't control it. I'd rather go to school anyway. Nobody talks about how scary it is going to school the day after getting a bad haircut. Because when I was younger, my mom sent me to this barber that would absolutely cook my hair. So I was terrified to go to school after getting it cut every single time. This is how it would go. I would get the horrible haircut, lie and tell the barber that I like it, then go to school the next day with a hat on. But all the other kids at school knew I wasn't a hat guy, so whenever I wore one, they were aware that there was only one reason for it. So the whole day, everyone at school would try taking my hat off to the point where I just contemplated gluing that thing to my head. And when they finally got it off, some of the kids would laugh at me, deservedly so. But the reactions I despised the most were the kids who would try being nice and say something like, oh, it's not that bad. Like, do you think I don't have a mirror at home? I'm not blind. I know I look like Willy Wonka right now. I am aware the barber cooked me. The worst part is I know he's out there ruining other kids' haircuts to this day, just like he did to mine. I feel so bad for them. Why do teachers have such weird bathroom passes? Like, they'll give you a sword from the Revolutionary War and tell you to take that to the bathroom. And I'm not even kidding, because in one of my classes, on the first day of school, I had to go to the bathroom. So I went up to the teacher and asked. But I was terrified after doing this because when I did it, she pulled out a baseball bat. So I'm thinking she's about to swing on me or something, and I'm like, okay, I get it. I won't ask to go again. But then she tried handing the bat to me and she was like, here, take this. So then I was like, for what? And she goes, this is the bathroom pass. Oh, okay, I got it. One question though. Why? You couldn't have just given me something smaller? How do you expect me to go number one while holding that thing? I only got 2 hands, girl. Also, isn't that considered like a weapon? You're giving me a weapon as a bathroom pass. Do you know how ridiculous I looked going to the bathroom while holding that? Let's just say, it made the janitor's life a lot harder. Why do old people never throw expired food away? Like, they'll have food from before World War II in their house, and that's not even an exaggeration because I went to my friend's grandpa's house one time, and we were hungry, so my friend asked his grandpa if he had any snacks, and he was like, yeah, check the fridge. So we open it, and we find some cheese, so we're like, ooh, let's have cheese and crackers. So my friend asks his grandpa again if they have any crackers, and he says, yeah, check the pantry. But we couldn't find any, so he comes to help us look, and he reaches all the way in the back to find this dusty aluminum container, and when he opens it, there's crackers inside. But the container looks straight out of the war, so my friend made a joke saying, hey grandpa, did you get this when you were fighting in the war? And with a straight face, he goes, yeah. So my friend was like, wait, are you serious? And he says, yeah, I got these fighting in Vietnam. Those crackers were 60 years old. He lost his hearing in the war, but he made sure to keep his crackers. Waking up first at a sleepover is the worst thing ever. Because whenever I was at a sleepover, I would always wake up at like 6 a.m. because I can't sleep unless I'm in my own bed. So I'd obviously be the first one awake, but this was a big problem because the only other person who was up would be my friend's dad. And don't get me wrong, I like my friend's dad, but he scared me. He wasn't much of a talker, so when the morning came around and it was just us two up, he would be like, I'm making breakfast right now. I'll make you some too. And I couldn't decline the breakfast because that would be rude, but when he made it, we would just sit there eating together without him saying anything. We'd literally be at the table sitting across from each other and he would just be silent the whole time. And I was like 10, so I didn't know how to have a conversation with an adult, so it was the most awkward thing ever. But after the first couple times this happened, I just pretended to be asleep after I woke up. I'd still be up at like 6 a.m., but I would just sit there with my eyes closed for like 4 hours waiting for my friends to wake up. Maybe the reason I always woke up first at my friend's house was because he would just give me a cardboard box to sleep on and not a real bed. I miss those days. Does anyone else have a friend who eats non-stop but never gains weight? Like, I know a guy who will eat in literally any scenario, yet he's still super skinny, and I'm not even exaggerating, because his sister had a baby recently, and he sent me a bunch of pictures of him holding it for the first time in the delivery room, and he said they were taken like 20 minutes after the baby was born. But what I found odd about the pictures was that in a lot of them, his mouth looked full. So I was like, dude, did you get stung by a bee or something while you were in there? And he was like, no, I was eating Burger King. So I was like, hold up, let me get this straight. You were eating Burger King in the delivery room 20 minutes after your sister had a baby. And he goes, yeah, I was hungry. You're always hungry. That doesn't mean you eat a Whopper 14 seconds after your baby nephew is born. But the craziest part is that he does stuff like this all the time, yet he never gains weight. Meanwhile, I sniffed a cinnamon roll the other day and gained 13 pounds. Must be nice. Nobody talks about how scary it is when you get called to the principal's office and your whole friend group is there. Cause one time, I was in class and the school phone starts ringing, so my teacher picks it up and is like, okay, I'll tell her. Tyler, you need to go to the principal's office right now. So I'm thinking my mom pulled me out of school to go on a vacation or something, and I'm not worried at all until I arrive to the office. And inside, I see 4 of my friends. But not only were they my friends, they were all people I'm in a group chat with. And they're looking at me all worried, so I'm like, oh no. I know what happened. Our group chat text finally got leaked. It's over. We're cooked. Or at least that's what I thought. Because once I arrived, the principal told us she was glad we were all there because she needed to talk to us as a group. But what she told us was that she saw us jaywalking one day after school and that we need to stop doing that. When she said that, we all took a big exhale looking at each other. As long as she didn't find out about the group chat, I don't care what we're getting in trouble for. Remembering you have free will is so crazy because I used to get bullied in school for being a little chubby. It wasn't that bad. It was just kind of annoying. But anyways, this one guy would always make jokes about me. So one day, I'm at school and he's cooking me like usual, saying I got more rolls than a Thanksgiving dinner. Good one, can't lie. But he's making all these jokes and I'm getting so angry that I'm about to do something that's gonna get me put in detention. But then randomly out of nowhere, I was like, wait, I don't have to listen to this. So as he's making fun of me, without saying anything, I just start walking away. And the guy kind of stutters for a second because he's confused what I'm doing. So then he's like, hey, where are you going? But I just ignored him and kept walking until he stopped trying to say anything to me. And once I realized this works, I just did it every day until eventually he stopped bothering me. I'm gonna just leave every time I'm talking to someone I don't want to talk to. Do you ever need an excuse to skip school? Do not say you have to go to a funeral. Because one time, I was going on vacation with my family, so I was gonna miss some school. But I needed an excuse to tell my teacher to not get in trouble, and I decided to tell her that I was going to my grandma's funeral. But I really didn't want her to question it, so I made it super dramatic, and I was like, yeah, this is the last grandma I had. But I really shouldn't have said this, because the teacher told me to take as much time off as I need. So a couple months later, the end of the school year came around, and this was my last year of elementary school, so we had like a graduation event for everyone that was gonna be moving on to middle school. But guess who came to this event? My grandma. And I totally forgot that I told my teacher she passed away. So when the event ended, my teacher came to say goodbye and she started talking to my whole family, including my grandma. So when my grandma introduced herself, my teacher looked as if she saw a ghost, because she probably thought she did. Once I realized why she had that look on her face, I was like, okay, time to go. I'm just glad I never had to go back. This is your warning to never wake your mom up when she's sleeping. Because when I was younger, I had a really bad tummy ache one night, and I didn't know what to do, so I went into my parents' room, tapped on my dad a couple times trying to wake him up, but of course he didn't because he's busy snoring at 500 decibels. So then I go over to my mom's side of the bed, and my mom is a really light sleeper, so right when I tapped on her arm, she goes, and I start panicking like, oh my gosh, mom, are you okay? She jumped up like she was just in a nightmare getting flashbacks from the war. But then once she sees me, she's like, yeah, I'm fine. Why? So I'm like, that's weird. But I kind of just brush it off because my stomach hurts so bad. But the next day, I asked her why she always jolts up like that right when I wake her up. And she goes, what are you talking about? She literally did not even know that's how she reacts when someone wakes her up. I guess she must just not be fully conscious yet when she does that. I had to stop waking her up in the middle of the night because it scared me so much. It was like winding up a Jack in the Box waiting for it to jump out at you. I'm never gonna understand Gen Alpha because I was at the airport the other day and this little kid on my flight recognized me. So we were talking a little bit, but then he started to tell me about the girl he has a crush on. And he starts describing her to me, but he's blushing as he's doing it, so I can tell that he really likes her. So eventually, I ask how they met, and he says that they've known each other since birth. So I'm like, oh wow, are your parents friends or something? But then he goes, no, my mom is her dad's sister. At first I'm like, oh, cool. But then I think about it a little more and I'm like, wait, your mom is her dad's sister. That means that girl is your cousin. He's still young though, so that's not a big deal. But I was thinking that I should probably tell him that it's not gonna work out between them. So I do, and he goes, oh, okay, I won't like her anymore then. I like another girl anyway. And I go, oh really? Who? Then he says, my crush's sister. That's still your cousin, dog. At this point, you do you, bro. I do girls make it so hard to tell when they like you, because I probably would have had a girlfriend by now if all girls weren't like this. Like anytime I was ever into a girl, when I would see them, I'd smile and try to make it really obvious that I liked them. But the response back would always be them giving me a face like this. And you may be like, well, Tyler, that just means they don't like you. And that's what I used to think too, but no. Because there have been multiple scenarios where a girl would look at me as if she thought I was the most disgusting creature ever, only to find out later that she liked me. I don't know what love language that is, but all girls seem to have it. And this is why I never ask girls out, because even if I like someone, I literally have no idea if they like me back because of how girls act when they're into someone. She could literally despise me or have a crush on me, and she'd give me the same exact look. This is your warning to never be friends with a bilingual person. Because I have a friend that speaks English and Spanish, but his parents are from Mexico, so they don't know any English. So when I met them for the first time, it was a nightmare because my friend likes to troll a lot, but he had to be the translator for me to communicate with his parents since he was the only one who knew both languages. So when we talked, he would purposely mistranslate what I said to his parents because he thought it was funny. Like I was in the car with his whole family and his mom asked what type of music I listened to. So I told her that I mostly listen to rap and R&B. But when I said this, my friend starts chuckling when he's trying to relay the message to his parents. But then I understood it because when he spoke Spanish back to his parents, I only recognized one of the words he said, which was Diddy. He told his parents that I like to listen to Diddy. So from there on out, I just started using my phone to translate what they said. Nobody talks about how scary it is when you're at your friend's house and their parents start yelling at them. Because I had a friend whose house I went to once and never again because the one time I went, it was so awkward. Like right when we walked inside his house, he tried introducing me to his mom, but she wouldn't even acknowledge my existence because right away, once she saw her son, she was like, Riley, why did I just get your report card in the mail and see that you're failing math? And he was like, Mom, we talked about this the other day. So they start yelling over each other, arguing, but Riley made a huge mistake because he got so mad that he cursed at her. And right when he did that, the mom completely stopped talking, went into another room, came back with a belt, and whooped him. All while I was right there watching. And then when it was over, he's wiping tears from his eyes, and I'm just like, hey man, I got a call from my mom. I actually have to go, sorry. What are you even supposed to do in that situation? I don't know who felt more embarrassed in that moment, me or him. Sleeping over at a rich person's house is so crazy because one time, my friend Colin invited me over for a sleepover, but I had never been to his house before. So when I arrived to the address he gave me, I knock on the door and a man in a fancy outfit answers, but I knew it wasn't his parents because I've seen them before. So this guy asks if I'm here to see my friend and I say yes. So he welcomes me in and tells me where Colin's at. And when I get to Colin, I ask who that guy at the front door was and he goes, oh, that's our butler. Dog, you have a butler? I thought that was just a thing in Batman. But then it gets more crazy because around midnight, he asks all of us if we want to go to the movie theater. So I was like, I mean, that sounds fun, but isn't the movies closed by now? And he goes, oh no, we have a movie theater in the house. So he takes us into the movie theater room and there's like 10 reclining chairs and like a 500-inch TV. The moment I saw this, I was on my best behavior the rest of the time because I was hoping his parents would just adopt me. This is your warning to never text a girl past midnight because I used to like this girl, so I would stay up late texting her every night and I really enjoyed it. But this turned out to be a huge mistake because one night we're texting at like 12:15 a.m. and I'm super tired because I went on a hike that day, so I'm struggling to keep my eyes open. But we're having a really good conversation, so I don't want to just end it and respond the next day because that would have ruined the flow of it. So I'm fighting super hard to stay awake until eventually my body forces me to fall asleep. So the next morning, I wake up and check my phone to see that this girl texted me saying, wow, that's so rude of you to say. But I don't remember what I said last night, so I'm like, what is she talking about? So I click on our conversation to see what made her say that, and then I started to remember what happened. Because before I fell asleep, my friend was also texting me asking when I wanted to go snowboarding. So I responded to him saying, I don't care. Or at least I thought I did. Turns out, I actually sent the girl that text because I was so tired. But this was really bad because you know what she said before I sent that text? She said, my grandma's had heart disease for a while. So basically, I said, I don't care about that. Well, isn't that great time? Have you ever told your mom to say no to a sleepover because you didn't want to go? Because I hated sleepovers as a child since I'd always be the first to fall asleep. And I'd wake up in the middle of the night with a tooth missing or something because everyone else would mess with me. But I have cool parents, so most of the time when one of my friends asked if I wanted to sleep over, my mom would say yes. So eventually, when I didn't want to go, I would just text my mom and be like, Mom, I'm gonna call you in a couple minutes to ask if I can sleep over at my friend's house. Please say no. And my mom would rather have me sleeping at home than at a friend's anyway, so she had no problem doing it. But my friends would always get mad at me because this is how the phone call would go. Hey mom, can I sleep over at my friend's house? No. Okay, bye. So they'd be like, dude, you didn't even try to convince her at all. And I would just be like, what? Yeah, I did. Little did they know, I was just terrified to fall asleep around them. Have you ever had a dream about someone so then you started liking them in real life? Because one night, I go to sleep like normal, but I have a dream out of nowhere about this girl in my math class. And it felt straight out of a rom-com. So when the morning comes, I'm in love with this girl. And you may say, well, Tyler, surely you liked this girl before the dream too, right? No, I barely even knew she existed. She was a girl in my math class I talked to maybe once, which is more than I talk to most women, I guess. But anyways, the point is, I never thought about this girl. But all of a sudden, when I had that dream, I thought she was my soulmate. Like I was planning our future together in my head, but this just shows how much I didn't know who she was. Cause I start looking into her more to learn more about her, and it turns out she had a boyfriend the whole time. So I don't know who's responsible for writing these dreams, but why do you have to play with my emotions like that, man? I mean, would I have even talked to her in real life? Probably not, but still. Nobody talks about how frustrating it is when your friend owes you money, yet they keep buying stuff. Like me and my friend went out to eat one time, but he said he didn't get paid till next week. So he asked if I could pay for his meal, which came out to be $22. So when the day came where he got paid, I didn't even ask for my money back. I was just hoping he would give it to me on his own, but he didn't. So about 3 days later, we're hanging out and I ask him if he can pay me back. But he's like, sorry man, I don't have the money yet. Just give me a couple more days. So I'm like, no worries dude, that's totally fine. Just let me know when you get the money. And I wasn't upset at all until I saw the story he posted the next day. Because you know where he was at? The casino! But the funny thing was, in the picture he posted, you could see the machine he was using and it said he put $100 in there. Where'd you get that money from? He ain't borrowing from me anymore, I can tell you that. If you see your teacher in public, do not talk to them. Because one time, I was at the grocery store and out of the corner of my eye, I see my history teacher. But he was one of the teachers I actually liked, so I was gonna go up to him and say hi. Until he made eye contact with me, because once he did that, he looked away super quick and started walking the other direction. So I was like, dang, I guess he just doesn't like me like I thought. But then it started to make more sense what really happened the next day at school. Because I walk into his class and he has all the lights off, and right as the bell rings, he looks super tired and tells the whole class that we're gonna be watching a movie today instead of doing any actual work. So this is where I started to connect the dots of why he actually ran away from me, because when I saw him at the store, he had a lot of alcoholic beverages in his shopping cart. So he definitely went home that day and drank a bunch, which is why he was tired. But he probably just didn't want me to know that. You could have just told me that though, Teach. I ain't mad at you. NZ in nursing homes is gonna be so scary because my friend's grandpa lives in one right now, and he told me that the last time he went to visit, there was two old people arguing, but the way they talked was so funny because it still sounded like they were in the 1950s. They were saying phrases like, you bet your bottom dollar, and then one lady trying to stop the argument was like, simmer down, boys. So this made me think about how ridiculous Gen Z people are gonna sound when we're in there. Because if we still talk like we do now, good luck to the nurses. Like an argument between us and the nursing home would be like, Bert, I know you cheated during bingo. That's cap. I did not. You're lucky I don't go to town on you right now. Wait, pause. And when we eat, it'll be like, man, this oatmeal hits different. We're gonna be the first generation to have brain rot in nursing homes. There's gonna be no nurses left that wanna work. Nobody talks about how embarrassing it is when someone says, you would be a cute couple to you and your crush, but they don't agree. Because one time, I was talking to this girl, and my friend knew that I liked her, so to help me out, he became my wingman and said, you know what I just realized about you guys? You would look so good as a couple. When he said this, I waited to see how she would react before I did anything, but immediately, with no hesitation, she just starts laughing hysterically. No words, just laughing. I've literally told her actual jokes before and I couldn't get her to laugh, but this did. So I don't know what to do now, and I just start laughing trying to match her energy. But then she's like, wait, why are you laughing? And I was like, well, why are you laughing? And she goes, because we never date, obviously. So then I'm like, yeah, that's totally why I laugh too. But then she just responds with, oh. What do you mean, oh? Like, why is it fine when you do it but not me? Does she want me to like her or not? I don't know what I'm supposed to say. Having class with your friend is the worst thing ever, because during school one day, a girl tripped walking to her desk, and it was so bad that she dislocated her ankle. So she starts crying, but it's not like a cry. No, she's screaming. So the teacher and her friends are trying to console her while they're waiting for the nurse to get there. And the rest of the class is just kind of silent watching this happen, including me. Until I look over at my best friend, because he had the tiniest smirk on his face. So the moment I saw that, I started laughing out loud. It wasn't on purpose. I just can't stop myself from laughing every time I see that face. But the girl and her friends heard me laugh, and there was no way for me to explain that I wasn't laughing at them. I was laughing at my homie. They should blame my friend though. It's not my fault he was looking at me with that John Pork smile. Have you ever had a friend that will leave the group chat for attention? And they'll do it thinking everyone's gonna beg for them to come back, when in reality, no one cares. Like, I have a friend that will leave the group chat for any minor inconvenience he has, so he does it like once a week. But every time he does this, no one even says anything about it. He leaves, and then we just continue whatever conversation we were having before. But the most funny part is that after about 5 minutes, when he realizes that there's not gonna be anyone begging for him to come back, he'll text one of us separately and be like, hey bro, can you add me back? But I know he feels so embarrassed sending that text every time, because one time after he left, instead of texting us, he just created a whole new group chat hoping that we would use that instead, but no one did. They be acting like the world's gonna stop spinning when they leave. So if you're the person in your friend group that does this, trust me, it's not worth it. Nobody talks about how embarrassing it is when your teacher says to get into groups, but no one wants to work with you. Because one time, I was put in the math class at my school that's meant for the smartest students, so it's really hard. But I'm not smart with math. I don't know why I was put in it. So when the day came where we had to do a group project, it was awful, because the teacher said to get into groups of 4. So I start looking around at everyone I know in the class. But every time I'd make eye contact with someone, they'd look away because no one wanted to work with me. And I don't blame them. I would have just held them back. But what made it traumatizing is since I couldn't find a group, I asked the teacher if I could work alone. But since there was no one left to work with, she was my partner. I mean, the good thing was I got an A on the project because of her, but still. If you get a call from a no-caller ID, always answer it. Because I got one the other day and I picked it up, but the person calling asked if my name was Raymond. So I said no, and they hung up right away. But the next day, I get another call, but when I pick it up, I recognize that it's the same voice from yesterday. But this time when they ask if it's Raymond speaking, I say yes, because I'm like, you know what? If they're gonna waste my time, I'm gonna waste theirs. So then they go, Raymond, would you be interested in selling your house? And I say, Yeah, actually, I would be. Then they ask what price I was thinking, and I just throw out a random number and say 500,000. But then they're like, we can work with that. And then they said they'll contact me again soon with more details. So if your name is Raymond and you live in Southern California, just know that you might be getting a for sale sign put in your front yard in the next couple of weeks. My bad. Know how when you have a crush on someone, you stalk all their social medias to learn more about them? Yeah, well, I do not recommend doing that because one time I liked this girl and I was looking through her profiles online and I found a picture of her with her mom. So being the investigator I am, I clicked on the mother's profile to check it out. But when I did that, I found a picture her mom posted with a man. So I was like, oh, this must be my crush's father. But then I click on his profile and see that he has a different last name in her. So I'm like, that's odd. And after a little more research, I found out that her parents were divorced and this was the mom's new boyfriend. So fast forward a few days later, I'm talking to this girl and she's telling me about how she had a hard childhood. So I slipped up and was like, yeah, I totally get it. I mean, having divorced parents can't be easy. But then she goes, wait, how'd you know my parents were divorced? And I was like, you told me, duh. Anyways, look at that bird. So then we changed the subject, but she definitely knew I was doing some investigating on her. My friend got hit by a car the other day, and you may not think that's funny, but it is due to how he reacted. Because he was riding a bicycle going super fast, but when he rode across an intersection, a car that was turning right didn't see him because of his speed and accidentally hit him. But the part that makes it funny is he broke his wrist, so I asked how bad it hurt when it happened, and he was like, honestly, I was in pain at first, but then I looked up and saw how many people were looking at me, and I just got super embarrassed and left. So I was like, wait, you left after getting hit by a car? And he goes, yeah. So I was like, well, did you at least get the information of the person that hit you? And he goes, nah, I didn't want anyone to see me because of how cringe I probably looked getting hit. But the most funny part is that his bike didn't even work anymore. So he just picked it up and jogged away with it. He's the only person I know who will not react to getting hit by a car just so people think he's nonchalant. Nobody talks about the difference between how your mom punishes you versus your dad. Because whenever I did something wrong as a child, my mom would start crying and be like, if you keep misbehaving, you're gonna end up like that kid Johnny that lives down the street that went to juvie. And I'd be like, Mom, Johnny hit an old lady with his bike. I just snuck some goldfish into my room. And then she would take my phone away. But with my dad, he wouldn't even discipline me at all. He would just be like, hey man, can you just listen to your mother? All right, cool, thanks. And that would be it. Unless I did something really bad, which in that case, getting punished by my dad was so much worse than getting punished by my mom. Because there was nothing more scary growing up than when my dad was angry. I would go to sleep thinking I was gonna wake up the next morning with a finger missing or something. But I am glad to say, I still have all 10 though. Never buy shoes off Temu because I was in class the other day and this kid walks in with a brand new pair of shoes. But they looked a little bit weird, so I knew right away that he got them off Temu because that man shops on that website like it's Black Friday every day. So anyways, he's wearing these shoes and we had a test that day, so the whole class was completely silent. Like if you talk, the teacher's gonna fail you. So while everyone is taking the test, a song randomly starts playing out of what sounds like a really low quality speaker. And everyone starts looking around trying to find where it's coming from, but then I look at the Temu kid's shoes and they're flashing red, matching the sound of the beat. You know why? Because the song was coming from his shoes. The shoes had speakers in them. Apparently the shoe can play like 3 songs and he accidentally tapped the button that starts it. So he immediately pressed the button again, trying to turn the song off as fast as he could. But why would you wear your Temu shoes to school in the first place? Have you ever noticed how every group chat has 3 different types of people? Like whether it's a group chat for your friends, family, or one for school, they all have the same 3 people. First, you got the one that always reads the messages, but never responds. You'll send something and they'll be the first one to see it, but they won't say anything. You'll just see their little bitmoji staring at you, but not responding. The second type of person is the one who just sends memes. They literally don't even communicate with words. This one is low-key me because I never know how to respond to people. So if someone says, my girlfriend broke up with me, I just respond by sending a picture of Peter Griffin shooting a fadeaway. But the third person that every group chat has is, to be honest, I don't know. I can only think of 2. Y'all are gonna have to be happy with that. So never double text someone you have a crush on because I used to do this all the time until one day. I was texting this girl I liked and she told me she was going to the mountains for the weekend. So while she was up there, I texted her asking how it was going, but she didn't respond. So about 10 hours later, I text again thinking that she probably just didn't have cell service and couldn't see the first text. Then I go to bed, but when I wake up in the morning, there's still no response. So I check her snap score to see if it's gone up since the last time she responded to me. It's not weird, everyone does it. But anyways, it did go up. So I knew she had service and I was just like, well, let's just try texting her one more time just in case she didn't see the first 2. But you know what happens right when I send the text? My messages go from being blue to green. You know why? She blocked me! This is so embarrassing though because I could just imagine her reaction after I sent the 3rd text being like, damn, another text? This guy won't shut up! But I learned my lesson that day. Now, I don't talk to women at all. A girl whose love language is physical touch is usually also a girl who hates being touched. Because I liked this girl one time, but she was never really interested in me, no matter how hard I tried. So I asked her friends what I could do to get her to like me, and they were like, well, she always talks about how her love language is physical touch. So I was like, awesome, I'll use that to make her like me. But this was a dumb thing to think, because we sat across from each other in class. So what I would do is play footsie and tap her feet with mine. It sounds weird, it wasn't. But anyways, I would do this hoping that she would tap my feet back in like a flirtatious way, but no. She would always quickly pull her feet away when I tapped them, until eventually, she got fed up with it and was like, would you stop touching my feet? So I went to her friends and was like, what the heck? I thought you guys said her love language was physical touch. But then they humbled me so hard by saying, Yeah, but only if it's from people that she likes. Well, that would have been useful to know earlier. Now everyone in that class probably thinks I'm a weird foot toucher. Nobody talks about how frustrating it is when you know someone is lying, but you can't say anything because of how you found out. Because the other day, I was hanging out with my friend, and he gets up to go to the bathroom, but he leaves his phone on the table, and at first, I wasn't even looking at it. But then I hear a ding sound go off, and out of habit, I glance at his phone, but I still wasn't gonna read anything until I see that it lit up because he got a text from someone with the contact name Baby Girl. But as far as I knew, my friend was single, so I was itching to know who Baby Girl was. And all of a sudden, my hand starts levitating over towards his phone without me having any control over it. That phone was calling me like the Green Goblin mask, so I pick it up, and the text says, "Love you, have fun." So he comes back from the bathroom, and to see whether he would lie or not, I go, "Is it just me, or are you tired of being single?" And suddenly his voice gets really high as he goes, "Yeah, bro, I'm so tired of being single." So I just had to sit there without saying what I wanted to, and it wasn't until 3 weeks later that he finally told me he had a girlfriend. Never make eye contact with someone who has a lazy eye. Because the other day, I was at the airport, and someone right behind me goes, "Excuse me." So I turn around and look at them, but right away, I noticed they had a lazy eye, so I couldn't tell if they were looking at me or not. But when I looked back at them, they said, "Do you like that jacket?" But this is where I messed up, because they had headphones in, and I wasn't wearing a jacket at the time. So since one of his eyes wasn't looking at me, I just assumed he was on the phone, and I turned back around. But when I did that, he went, that was rude." So I turned to look at him again, but he still looked like he wasn't talking to me because of his lazy eye. So finally, I just go, "Eh?" And he nods his head yes. So that was when I realized he was talking about the jacket I had on in my screensaver. So I apologized, but I didn't know what else to say because I couldn't just be like, "Oh yeah, sorry, I couldn't tell you were talking to me because of your lazy eye." I should have just pretended to be deaf. Have you ever gotten close with someone you never thought you'd talk to? Because back in school, I had two separate friends that hated each other. Because when I would hang out with one of them, the other one would get upset that I wasn't hanging out with them. So one day, I had the idea for us to all eat lunch together. Because they never even actually talked. The only reason they didn't like each other was because of me. So we all ate lunch together that day, and I think both of them started to realize that they had a lot more in common than they thought, and the only reason they disliked each other was for a dumb reason. So over time, we started to hang out as a group, and I was super happy about it at first, but unfortunately, they grew way closer than I ever expected because eventually, they started hanging out without me. It was basically like introducing your girlfriend to your homie, and then she cheats on you with him. I hope y'all are happy together, man. If you have a Gen Z lawyer, you are not beating your case. Because I had jury duty the other week, and the person on trial was there for robbing a gas station without a weapon. So you wouldn't think they would get that big of a punishment, but I knew they were cooked right when their lawyer walked in. Because first of all, he had that fluffy, messy Gen Z haircut, which is fine, but not in court. The judge ain't taking you seriously with that haircut. But that wasn't even the bad part, because the whole time he was trying to talk during the trial, it was a mess. Like, he would be explaining why his client wasn't guilty, but then the lawyer going against him would interrupt him and say something. So eventually, the Gen Z one got fed up, and he was like, "Are you gonna let me speak?" But then there was another moment where he crashed out, because the other lawyer said, "Your Honor, if this man isn't punished for his crime, he will do it again." And the Gen Z lawyer just went, "Nuh-uh." So let's just say, that man did not win his case. You can always tell when someone is a middle child because they do not get treated like everyone else. Because one time, I was at an amusement park with 5 other people, and one of them was a middle child. So during this whole day, we were going on different rides, but it was super crowded there. So about 3 hours into being there, we realized we lost our middle child friend. So I was like, "Wait, guys, has anyone seen Cole?" But no one had, so we figured he just went to the bathroom or something without telling us. So we called him to tell him where we were at, and he finally met back up with us. So we asked him what happened, and he told us he got separated from us right when we entered the park. So we were like, "You got separated from us 3 hours ago and didn't try to call to find us?" And he was like, "Nah, I'm used to people losing track of me. It happens all the time at home, so I just wandered off and went on some roller coasters by myself." I feel horrible for that, but honestly, I respect middle children a lot. They're way less needy than us younger siblings. Have you ever met someone who's completely different at school versus at home? Because there was a kid I went to school with named Barry, but Barry was very shy and antisocial. A lot of people at school didn't even know who he was because he never talked, and the only reason I did was because we sat next to each other in class. So I just figured this was how he always acted, until one day, we got put together for a group project, and I needed a way to contact him. So I looked up his name on social media, and I found his profile, but it was a lot different from what I expected, to say the least. Because you know what he posted on there? He posted videos of him rapping. Outside of school, he was pursuing a full-blown rap career. But the best part was that his username was Lil Barry. So when I asked him at school who Lil Barry was, his face got super red because I don't think he wanted anyone to find out. But he should have been happy to show it off. He was low-key pretty good. Nobody talks about how scary it is when you're at your friend's house and they tell their mom you're hungry. Like, great, now your mom hates me. Because when I was younger, I would hang out at my friend's house after school a lot, but he had an appetite smaller than a celebrity on Ozempic. So I didn't want to ask him for food at his own house. I wanted him to offer it. But he was never hungry, so what I did is give him subtle hints that I was hungry, hoping that this would make him offer me food. Like, we would see a Taco Bell commercial on the TV, and I would be like, "Dang, Taco Bell sounds really good right now, doesn't it?" But he would just be like, "Nah, not really." But one time when I did this, instead of responding to me, he was just like, "Hey, yo, mom, Tyler's hungry. Can you make him something?" Why would you say it like that? Now your mama just thinks I'm a big back who wants to empty all her cabinets. I mean, I am, but still.
What would you do if an animal ruined your day at the zoo? Because that's what happened to me today.
So I was at the hippo exhibit, and they have this big pool area for them to swim in, which is like 50 feet away from all the people. So I was just chilling, looking at the hippos roam around until one of them decided to go for a swim. But what I didn't realize about hippos is just how heavy they are, because this hippo did not just stroll into the water. It sprinted full speed, then jumped in. And since the hippo is so big, when it hit the water, it made the biggest splash since Rihanna at the Super Bowl. So somehow, the water came all the way from the pool, 50 feet over to me and everyone else standing by me. We all got drenched because none of us were expecting the water to come that far, so we didn't have time to react. This is literally how it went. Oh, look, the hippo's about to jump in the water. Oh no. Girls who grew up with brothers are way different than girls who grew up with sisters. Because I have two friends that are girls. However, one of them only has brothers, while the other just has sisters. And the difference between them is night and day, because we would eat lunch together all the time, but eventually, I noticed something strange while we ate, which was that the girl with just brothers would always eat her food like 5 times faster than the girl with just sisters. But not only did she eat faster, she also always looked worried that someone was gonna take the food from her. So one time, I was like, damn girl, no one's gonna steal your food. But then she explained to me that it's a habit for her to eat like this, because when she was younger, she had to eat her food super fast, or else her brothers would just take it all. She rarely ever got to actually have a full meal because her brothers would just eat the majority of the food. Meanwhile, the girl with the sister ate like a damn turtle. You know she wasn't competing for food in her house. Why do people make their phone flash when they get a notification? Because my friend almost got beat up for this the other day, because we were at a restaurant and he was holding his phone, but then he got a text, so it started flashing like a fire alarm. And at first, no one said anything until he got another text about 30 seconds later, which made it flash again. But my friend was holding his phone like this when he got the notifications, so it was flashing to the table next to us. And the people sitting there was a family with 2 little kids. So the dad yelled at my friend and was like, "Hey, why are you taking pictures of my family?" So my friend tried to explain that he wasn't taking pictures and it was just his ridiculous notification alert. But the dad didn't believe him at all, and I don't blame him, because who would choose to make their phone do that? But then my friend showed him that he was telling the truth by having me text him. But honestly, I was kind of hoping the dad would beat my friend up, just so he would finally change the damn ringtone. Did anyone else have a friend growing up that your parents trusted, even though they shouldn't have? Like, my parents would let me go anywhere when I was younger, as long as my friend Jaden was coming. Because he was really good at talking to adults, so they thought he was the most responsible, respectful kid ever. Like, when he came over, he would always shake their hands and be super mature, so my parents just figured that he was a good kid for their son to be around. But what they didn't know is how he acted when adults weren't around, because the moment we would leave, he would turn crazy. Like when Jaden's pet fish passed away, instead of burying it or flushing it down the toilet like a normal person, he filled the fish bowl with Coke and Mentos, which made the deceased fish shoot up into the air. It literally flew like 15 feet and then splattered onto the ground. I didn't know whether to be terrified or amazed by what I just saw, but this was like normal for him. He would do things like this all the time. But the moment that adults came around, he turned on that parents' ridge. Why does school make you so ugly? Like every morning I wake up and get ready for about 30 minutes trying to look my absolute best for all the ladies. And when I leave the house, I feel like I look like Brad Pitt. But the moment I walk through those school gates, I turn into Quasimodo. And you might be like, oh, Tyler, it's all in your head. But no, I've literally taken pictures before to prove it. I took a pic of myself right before leaving for school, and then I took a pic when I arrived in class. And when you compare them, I look more different than Michael Jackson when he switched colors. But how I know for sure that I'm not crazy is, this doesn't just happen to me. Like, there are girls I went to school with, and whenever they would post on social media, I almost wouldn't recognize them because of how different they looked online compared to in person. But the most frustrating part about all this is right when school ends and I go back home, I look fine again. Who's doing this to us? Nobody talks about how Gen Z has a secret way of communicating. Because the other day, I texted my friend, but they got a new phone, so they didn't recognize my number. But when I told them who I was, they were like, I would have never guessed it was you based off the way you talk. So I asked what they meant by that, and they told me that I communicate like an old person, not someone in Gen Z. I didn't know what that meant, so I made him explain what exactly talking like a Gen Z person looks like. And he told me almost everyone in our generation never capitalizes the first letter of a sentence. But I do, so that's why he thought I was old. The worst part was, he made fun of me for it, saying it looks dumb how I text. But like, dog, you're laughing at me because I use correct grammar? There's no way I'm the one getting cooked. So I asked him why everyone in our generation does this, and he was like, it just looks better. Since when do you care how good your text message looks? This ain't the Declaration of Independence. I don't care if it looks pretty. Nobody talks about how frustrating it is when you show someone a movie, but they don't pay attention. And then they'll ask questions during it, even though they wouldn't have to if they just watched it. Because the other day, my friend told me that he's never seen the movie Interstellar. And I was like, bro, that literally may be the best film of all time. You have to watch it. So I decided to show him it, and I'm super excited because it's such a good movie, I think he's gonna love it. But about 5 minutes into watching, I hear him laughing, and I'm like, this part of the movie ain't funny. So I look at him, and he's on his phone texting. So I'm like, bro, you're missing the movie. And he's like, oh yeah, my bad. Wait, who is this old lady talking right now? Maybe if you actually paid attention, you wouldn't have to ask these questions. So he puts his phone down and starts watching, but literally 1 minute later, he's back on it. Like, if you don't want to watch a movie that I'm showing you, Just tell me. I'd much rather you do that than say you want to watch it, and then when I show it to you, you just completely ignore it.
What would you do if a girl made her dog attack you? Because that's what happened to me today.
So there's this girl in my apartment complex that I thought was super pretty, and I would always see her around. But I was too shy to ever talk to her until one day she walked by my door with her dog at the exact same time I was leaving. So we were like 2 feet away from each other, and we made eye contact. So I had to say something. So I was like, "Oh, your dog is so cute. Can I pet it?" And she let me. But as I'm petting it, I see that it's wearing a dog tag that has a phone number on it. So then I'm thinking, wait, this is probably her number. So I look at it for about 5 seconds, just pretending to pet the dog, when in reality, I'm just trying to memorize the number. But she sneezes while I'm petting the dog, which frightens it. So it bit me. So then she apologizes like 100 times, and I'm like, "It's okay, don't worry." And then I leave. So I'm thinking, yes, I have her number now. But immediately after that, I was like, wait, what am I possibly going to do with it? Send her a text and say I got her number from her dog's collar? Yeah, that definitely won't make me sound like Jeffrey Dahmer. You can always tell when someone grew up with divorced parents, because during my high school graduation, the person I was sitting next to acted super nervous the whole time. So I was like, "Are you nervous about graduating too?" But she was like, "Oh no, I don't care about the graduation part. I'm nervous for what's coming after that." So I was like, I see. You don't know what you're gonna do with your life after high school yet, huh? But then she says, "What? No, I'm going to Duke. I'm fine. I meant that I'm nervous for what's gonna happen tonight." So I ask her to explain more, and she tells me that her whole family is coming to watch her graduate. But they're all going to dinner together after. So then it clicked what was going on, and I was like, "Oh, are your parents divorced?" But not only did she say yes, she also said that this was gonna be the first time they were all together since they signed the papers. So she was super nervous because she had no idea how it was gonna go. I low-key almost asked for an invite to that dinner. I wanted to see how it was gonna go down. Gen Z is gonna be the worst parents ever. Because I was recently invited to a 4-year-old's birthday party. It's not weird, I knew his uncle. But anyways, since it's his birthday, a lot of people got him presents. But one person decided to give him $500. So when the kid opened the envelope with the money, his Gen Z dad's eyes lit up, and he said, "Here, give me the money. I'll keep it safe for you, buddy." So the kid reluctantly gave it to him, and you would think the dad took the money and just saved it for when he was older, right? Wrong, because the kid's uncle who I was there with told me that every time someone gives that kid money, his dad takes it and says he'll keep it safe for him, when in reality, he just gambles it. So I was like, well, is he at least gonna give the kid some of the money he wins when he's older? But my friend was like, "Brother, there is no money. Because even if he does win, he just gambles all of that until eventually he has nothing left." That little guy's getting robbed. Nobody talks about the difference between being boy pretty versus girl pretty. Because back in high school, pretty much all the girls in my grade had a crush on the same dude. But this confused me because there were other guys at the school that were in way better shape, more conventionally handsome, yet they got way less attention than this guy. So it wasn't until I asked the girls what was so attractive about him that I started to understand it. Because when they were describing what they liked about him, they didn't say any physical features, well, except for his height. But besides that, they mostly talked about his energy. So I was like, what do you mean by that? And this one girl helped me understand it a lot when she was like, "Do you know the main character in the Ratatouille movie?" And I was like, "Yeah, the rat?" But then she was like, "No, the guy. That's the type of energy we're talking about." When she said this, I was like, oh, now I see why y'all like Pete Davidson so much. Looks like me pretending to be nonchalant and mysterious this whole time was all for nothing. Nobody talks about how embarrassing it is when someone says you look like someone that is not good looking. Because I was at the mall the other day, and a person who watches my videos came up to me and was like, "Tyler, I'm so glad I found you." So I respond with, "Oh yeah, why is that?" And he goes, "Because every time I watch your videos, I always think of how you look so much like this one movie character." So I ask what character, and he says he'll show me, but before he does, he goes, "You probably won't see it at first, but if you really look, there's a resemblance." So I'm thinking he's about to show me a picture of Brad Pitt or something, but then he turns the phone, and it's the rat from Flushed Away. Immediately I was like, what are you talking about? I look nothing like him. But then he was like, "Here, compare it to a picture of yourself." So I do, and after a few seconds, I'm like, oh my gosh, I do look like him. You gotta be kidding me, man. Imagine meeting someone who watches your content in public, and they just cook you. I can't catch a break. This is your warning to never date someone who's the youngest child. Because I was talking to this girl once, and she invited me over to have dinner with her family. But what she didn't tell me is that she's the youngest sibling, and she has 3 older brothers. So right when I walk in their house, all 3 of the brothers are in the living room staring at me. And they had a very serious look on their face. So I introduced myself to them. But I could tell they really wanted to intimidate me because they shook my hand really hard. So the intimidation was working because later on, we're all at the dinner table eating until one of the brothers goes, "Hey mom, look at this new toy I got." Then he goes into his room and comes back with a machete. So we're all just eating dinner while he has a machete at the table. But the scary part is, he started sharpening it while making eye contact with me. He was basically saying like, "Hey, if you mess with my sister, I'm gonna use this thing on you." And listen, I liked this girl, but not enough to fight off ninjas. So that was the last time I ever went over there. Nobody talks about how scary it is to see your teacher in public. Because I was at a restaurant with my family one time, but as the waitress was seating us, I see my teacher eating with her family. So I tried looking in the opposite direction because I didn't want her seeing me, but then we arrive at our table, which happened to be the one right next to them. So we sit down, and I've just got my head turned like this, which makes my parents be like, "Tyler, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, you know, I just got a sore neck." But then they're like, You look ridiculous. Sit up straight. So I do, and despite trying my hardest to avoid eye contact, the teacher sees me. So she waves and goes, "Oh, hi, Tyler. Is this mom and dad?" But I didn't want her talking to my parents because I knew she was gonna tell them how bad I behave in class. So I'm just like, yeah. And then she goes, "This one's a big troublemaker, huh?" And my parents look at me confused because they had no idea about my behavior in class. So to stop her from saying any more, I was just like, "Enjoy your dinner, Miss Garendo." Why is it so hard to date in Gen Z? Like, I'm pretty sure everyone in this generation is gonna end up alone. Because there was this girl that would like my story every time I posted, but in real life, she would never talk to me. So eventually, one of her friends came up to me and was like, "Dude, why don't you talk to Sarah?" So I was like, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "You know Sarah likes you, right? She's been trying to flirt with you for a while now." And I was like, "No, she never even talks to me." But then her friend was like, "Yeah, but she always likes your stories." So that's how people flirt now? I just figured she thought the memes I reposted were funny. Like, how am I supposed to know that's flirting? But I understand why no one wants to talk normally to the people they like in this generation, because if you do, odds are that what you say is just gonna end up in a screenshot that the whole school will see, and then they'll make fun of you for it. Am I speaking from experience? That's not important. If you have to poop at your friend's house, make sure they have a good toilet. Because I just met my friend's parents for the first time at their house, so they don't know me at all. But his family is Latin, so I walk into their house and see that they're making this big dinner. But if there's one thing to know about Latin food, it's that it can be super spicy. But anyways, when all the food was ready, I started eating, and they fed me like a king. They kept telling me to eat more and more, so I did because I didn't want them to think that I wasn't enjoying it. But about 20 minutes after we finished eating, my stomach started to rumble, and I realized I had to get to the bathroom ASAP. So I did, but like I said, I ate a lot. So after I was done on the toilet, I tried flushing it, but it got clogged. And I started to panic. Then I looked for a plunger, but I couldn't find one. So I flushed the toilet again. But that just made the water rise even higher until it almost spilt out the toilet. So eventually, I just had to tell the family what happened. And they all laughed. And then the father said, "Not everyone can take the heat." That man wasn't lying. Gen Z has to be the dumbest generation ever. Because I just had my final exams for school, which determined whether I passed or failed my classes. And I thought I did really good on them until I got my results back yesterday. Because in one of my classes, our final exam was an essay, but since I'm chronically on my phone, instead of using correct punctuation and spelling, I just wrote it like how I would write a text. Like every time I typed the word you, I just spelt it by putting the letter U. And instead of saying because, I just said cuz and spelt it C-U-Z. I even wrote LOL in one of the sentences. I just completely forgot how to write normally. So when I got the paper back, my teacher circled all the incorrect grammar I used and literally said, "This doesn't make any sense." This was almost as bad as the time I was in Spanish class and we had to create a short film speaking in Spanish, but I forgot and just did the whole thing in English. Maybe Gen Z's not dumb actually. Maybe it's just me. Nobody talks about the difference between how girls act when they have a crush versus guys. Like I knew this one girl that was obsessed with this dude at our school. And I used to think that when girls have a crush, they just tell their friends about it at a sleepover while giggling and kicking their feet in the air. But instead of doing all that, this girl literally just stalked his whole family tree. Like she found his parents' social medias, where everyone in his family went to school, their birthdays. I mean, she probably knew all their blood types too. Like, they should have made the TV show that's called You about this girl. But when a guy likes a girl, we just imagine fake scenarios in our head of us being together. Because last time I liked a girl, I had a dream that was literally just the plot of the Shrek movie, where I was Shrek and she was Fiona and I saved her. But sadly in real life, I just stared at her awkwardly and hoped that she noticed me. Never hire a Gen Z person to work for you. Because I was just at Chick-fil-A and the line was taking forever. But when it was my turn to order, I tell the guy what I want. But as I'm doing that, he keeps looking up directly behind me every 5 seconds. So I thought there was a ghost standing behind me or something, but then out of nowhere, he looks at the clock again, turns around, gets his stuff, and then leaves. Right in the middle of taking my order. So another worker sees this, rolls her eyes, and then finishes taking my order. But I asked her why that guy just left randomly, and she said he always leaves the second his shift ends. So the reason he was looking up behind me is because there was a clock on the wall, and the minute that clock struck 8 p.m., he was out of there. Honestly, I respect it because if you ain't getting paid to stay longer, you might as well leave. But bro, can you at least finish taking my order next time? This is your warning to never invite me to a funeral. Because I went to one of my friend's grandma's funeral a long time ago. But right when we arrived, everyone was crowding around her casket. And I didn't know why, so being the young, curious kid I walked over to the casket. And this was one of the first funerals I've ever been to. But prior to this, I had no idea that some funerals have open caskets. So I walk right up to the casket and see that it's open. But I was too little to actually see inside it. So I got closer to it and stood on my tippy toes. And that was when I saw my friend's grandma just chilling there. I screamed so loud because at the time, I genuinely thought that I saw a ghost. It just looked like she was sleeping and I had no idea what was going on. So I started crying. Not for the same reason everyone else was, but it just made the whole situation so awkward. If anyone from that family is watching this, my bad. Why are people in scary movies so dumb? Because I was just watching a scary movie that made me so frustrated with the characters that by the end, I was hoping the killer would get them. Like, tell me why I'm watching this movie where these girls are given a videotape and they're told that if they watch it, they will pass away. But what do? Immediately watch the tape. Like, I have no sympathy for you. People in horror movies just need to mind their own business. Don't watch these haunted tapes, don't go inside any freaky tunnels, and don't buy a house where the past 40 people who lived in it mysteriously passed away. Have you ever noticed that every person who doesn't make it in a horror movie was snooping around somewhere they shouldn't have been? Like, this is how I would be if I was in a horror movie. What's that? Oh, you think we should go into that creepy house over there even though you literally just saw a ghost turn the last person who entered into a pretzel? Yeah. I'm not gonna do it. Gen Z is the most unserious generation ever. Because my friend used to have cancer, so he was completely bald. But instead of wearing hats or beanies to cover up his hair, he did the exact opposite. Because we had this class together that was super boring. So once he went bald, the next day, he brought these mini plungers to school, but when he pulled them out, we were like, what are these for? Like, did a Smurf clog up a toilet or something? But then he told us he bought the plungers so we could try throwing them at his head during class. So we would do a competition to see who could get the most to stick. And this was his idea. Because we were like, are you sure about this? But he was just smiling and was like, yeah, this is awesome. People in this generation don't even take it seriously when they get diagnosed with a chronic illness. I shouldn't even be surprised though, because this is the same guy who dressed up as Mr. Clean that same year during Halloween and put a bunch of baby oil on his head to make it more shiny. Nobody talks about how scary it is to play music with your parents in the car. Because I never realized how dirty most of the songs I like are until I listened to them around my mom and dad. Like one time, I was in the car with him and I needed to charge my phone, so I plugged it into the aux, which made my music start playing. Then I was like, oh, let me choose a good song so my parents think I have a good music taste. So I put on the song With Them by Young Thug. But if you've ever heard this song before, you know that the moment it starts playing, it gets really inappropriate. So my mom was like, oh my gosh, Tyler, this is so vulgar. And my dad was like, heck yeah, this is awesome. But I was so embarrassed. I quickly changed it to gospel music just to try to make them forget about what happened. Like, I literally had no idea how dirty that song was until I listened to it with my parents in the car. I guess I just never actually pay attention to lyrics, but I learned my lesson. Never again. Nobody talks about how sad it is when your favorite teacher yells at you. Because I only really liked one of my teachers throughout all of high school, and he was so cool that I would spend lunch with him every day. But one day during class, he spilled coffee on his shirt, and this put him in a really bad mood. So a couple minutes later, he's teaching the class, but the person next to me says something really funny, so I laugh. And normally, if I laughed while he was teaching, he would just ask what was so funny. And then when I told him, he would usually laugh too. But this time, he just screams, Tyler, if you want to keep interrupting this class, you can leave. And this almost made me cry because I thought we were homies. I was like, damn, you embarrassed me in front of all these ladies when I thought we were tight? But from this point on, it was never the same between us. I even had to stop eating lunch in his class because it felt so awkward now. It was literally like going through a breakup. What would you do if someone ended your friendship over a joke? Because that's what happened to me today. So we were at dinner with a bunch of our other friends, and one of them got a new dog recently. So she was asking us for recommendations on what to name it, and everyone was giving names. And as a joke, I said, you should name it Diddy, so when it's misbehaving, you can say, you're a bad boy, Diddy. But no one heard me say this except for one person, and I knew he heard it because he was making eye contact with me. And I could tell by his reaction that he thought it was funny. But instead of telling me to say it again so everyone could hear it, he turns to the rest of the table and literally says, you should name it Diddy, so when it's misbehaving, you can say, you're a bad boy, Diddy. And the whole friend group just starts laughing hysterically. He literally repeated my joke word for word, but said it louder and then took credit for it. But this isn't the first time he's done this. When I saw him looking at me after I said that joke, I knew exactly what he was gonna do. You can't trust people like this. Nobody talks about how frustrating it is when you're trying to cancel plans, but your friend keeps finding out solutions. Because whenever I say yes to plans, it's probably because I was in a really good mood at the moment, or I just don't want to be rude and say no. So when the time comes to actually hang out, I usually don't want to do it. So I'll think of a bunch of different reasons why I can't make it, but my friend will always come up with a solution. My friends wanted to go see a movie that started at 10:30 p.m. So because I didn't want to go, I was like, sorry guys, I don't think I can make it. I have a dentist appointment tomorrow at 8 a.m. But then my friend was like, wait, is Dr. Benson your dentist? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, oh, don't worry, that's my mom's friend. I'll just tell her to text him to push her appointment back so you don't have to wake up as early. So I was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Just let me skip in peace. And this totally isn't a good thing to do, but I'm so bad at saying no when people ask me to hang out. I just don't want to be mean. School bathrooms have to be the scariest place on earth because one time my mom bought me donuts for breakfast and I love donuts, so I ate 7 of them, then went directly to school. But about 2 hours into class, I felt rumblings in my stomach and it felt like Mike Tyson was in a fight with my intestines. So at that point, I knew I had no choice but to go into the school bathroom and go number 2. So I went into the stall, but then someone else walked into the bathroom with a speaker playing music. Then I heard another person come in, and another. And another. Eventually there was like 30 people inside the bathroom and they were all singing along to the music that was playing through the speaker. But they were going crazy in there. They were shaking the stall doors, throwing pencils. It felt like a war zone. I was terrified, but I had no idea what was going on. So when I got out of the stall, I asked someone what was happening. And apparently they were having a memorial for Harambe passing away. Because this was the day after that happened. Honestly, I wasn't even mad because I miss Harambe too, man.
রুটি ঠান্ডা গেলা
রুটি ঠান্ডা
ঠান্ডা মানে আব্বা বরফের লাহান ঠান্ডা, এটা রুটি।
শ্বশুর আব্বা আপনারে আপ্যায়ন করে নাই, খাতির যত্ন করে নাই।
না আব্বা আমি
বিলাই মারার রাত আজকা আজকা যদি তুই ঠিক মতো দামকে দিবার মানুষ পাই জায়গা চলগা নালে বললাম সারা।
আর দোস্ত মাগো আছে, ওগো খানদান আর আমাগো খানদান এক না, অদ্ভুত কিছু নিয়ম কানুন পালন করতে যাইয়া তোমার বাড়ি।
তুমি কইতেছোটা কি? আমগোর খানদানের পোলা পাইন যদি একবার ঘর জামাই হয়ে যায় গা, ওরা তোর খানদানে ফেরত যাবার পারে না।
আমি আব্বা আমারে বুঝামো।
কি বুঝাইবা তুমি?
হয় নাই কা, তুমি আমারে বুঝাইতে পারতা, আমারে মারলা। ওসব আমগো বংশে
আজকে এইসব হইতেছে। আব্বা আমি কই যাবো? আব্বা আপনি আমার প্যারা ড্যাডি। আব্বা
তুই আমার দাঁড়াবি না, দূরে থাক দূরে থাক।
আমি খাটে ঘুমাইছিলাম, আমার লাথি মেরে খাটেতে হালায় ভাইজান লেটে লেটে সারে ঘুমাইছে।
হারামজাদা মিছে কথা কস্তুর।
বউ সেবা সুন্দর করে না করতে পারলে জামাই পিটানোর রেওয়াজও আছে। আই তুমি কুস্তি পারো?
না
জি ভাইজান, ভাবি ফালতু খানদানে কইলাম আজকে তো আপনার বাসো ভাই।
ফাইনাল ডিসিশন লয়ে লইছি, আজকে রাতে কিন্তু আপনার লগেই ঘুমাবো।
আমার লগে কেন বাজান? আপনি আমার লগে ঘুমাইবেন কেন?
জিন্দেগি তুই এই ডার পোষাইতে পারবি না বাজার। তোর আমি সাজিয়ে দিতাছি তুই জলদি।
ক্যাচে লাগাইছে।
মা তুই এক কাম কর, জামাই লইয়া শ্বশুর বাড়ি জাগা। ওর মা শ্বশুর
এই তো একেবারে বাঘের বাচ্চা।
ফুদি দে।
আচ্ছা বাঘের মতন যাবি।
তুমি বাসে আসার পর থেকে আমাকে বাসে শান্তি সব চলে লাগেছে।
আয় হায় খাইছে করছোটা কি তুমি?
তুমি একটা ভিডিও কল করে পাঠাও প্লিজ, প্লিজ। কবে আমগো দেখা
কোচিনটা কি এটা আব্বার লগে এমন চিপা মাইটা দিয়েছেন? কেমন ঠান্ডান বউ? তারপর তো ভয় কাঁচে মুচু খায়া গেছে গা, তারপর আবার দুর্নাম করতে হইব। এই তোর কি তোর দামি ফোন?
আইসে বাবজান, রাইতে ঠিকঠাক মতো ঘুমাইছে তো নাকি বাসায় গিয়া আব্বাজান রে কইবেন?
কি করছো যেটা তুই? বাজার রে বাজার যাও চলছে আজকাই করছে।
সম্মান সব পঞ্চার করে দিছে।
মাগার দোষ আমারও আছে, আমি একটু বেশি বাড়াবাড়ি করে ফেলছি। চলো না আমরা বাড়িতে ফিরে যাই।
তুমি কি পাগল হয়ে গেছো নি? এইটাই আমার বাড়ি এখনতে।
চৌধুরী সাহেবের সাথে আমি কি কথা কইছি? তুমি কোনো কথাই কই নাই কা? সাজান তোমারে কইলো এত
দিচ্ছেন, হ্যাঁ দিচ্ছেন না? এলা বাইরন, আমার বাড়িতে বাইরন।
একটা হাসা করছেন আব্বাজান, আপনার পোলার এই বাড়ি পোলার কোনো বিতলামি করলে আমি তোরা ঘাড়াই, কিন্তু ভাবলাম আপনাকে একমাত্র পোলা ঘাড়াইলে আবার দিলে চোট পাই।
দিতাছো তুমি?
শোনো, তোমাগো খানদানে যেমন কিছু নিয়ম আছে আমাগো খানদানেও আছে।
এইসব ফাত্রা নিয়ম কেউ যেন জানবার না পারে, মনে থাকবো তো? তোর যে নতুন বাবি
ও গো, কতদিন ধরে তোমার লগে আমি কথা কইতাছি, মাগার
কি করো নাইকা? হ্যাঁ, আরো থেকে আউনের পর থেকে কি করতেছো? ফোনের ভিতরে হান্দায় রয়েছো।
আব্বাই তো মা গো মা, আব্বাই তো দেখি হেভি পাঙ্খ।
হুম, নিশ্চয়ই কোনো ভেজাল আছে। ওই দেখি কার লগে ফিল্ডিং মারতে।
কি আবার সকাল সকাল ঘুম ভালো হইছে, তোমার আব্বার লগে দেখা কইরা এলাম, হাইটটা গেছিলাম, এই ঘটনা।
তুমি রাগ করো না।
রাগ তো তুমি করবা, খারা খারা চায়া দেও।
আমি তো ভাবছি ডাকাত পড়ছে নি।
এই শাহজাহানগর বাড়িতে ডাকাত আইবো এমন কোন মায়ালাল পয়দা হইছে নি? তোমার বিছানা আমি ভিজায়া দিছি গা।
এটা তুমি কি করছো?
কি করছি, ঘুমাইবা না?
তোমার পূর্বপুরুষের মাথায় কি সমস্যা ছিল আব্বা?
আবার নাটকের পর কয় কি শুনছো ওই বেটা?
আব্বা জান, আপনার পোলার এখন জিগান তো রুটি গরম না ঠান্ডা?
বাপ রে বাপ, শুনছো নি একেবারে ডর দেয় তো বলে খুশি খুশি করে কাটতো হয়েছে। আপনার ডর আপনার পকেটে থুয়া দেন।
খানদানটা আমার কত উচ্চা দেখতে হইব না?
দেখতেছি তো, উঁচা ভি আর লম্বা ভি কুচি কুচি করে না কাইটা ফেলাইছি আব্বা। আমার তো মনে করে যখন ডর দেখাইতে দেখাইতে আমি দেখেন আপনি কি করি। ঘরে আইলাম না, এখন দেন না আসমানে ঠাড়াল্লাহান একেবারে কাঁপায়া দিমু।
আচ্ছা, আপনার